Okay, let's talk about Shawn Duffy. He is the Secretary of Transportation right now, the guy who replaced Pete Buttigieg, and he's the reason your planes are crashing and the Newark airport is a punchline. Well, a couple of weeks ago, he gave a commencement address to about 200 graduates at the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy. And these are people who will go on to become active duty officers or reservists in different branches of the military. And instead of saying anything inspirational, he delivered this Jesus packed sermon and pushed Christian nationalist lies. And I want to talk about one of those lies in particular, but I want to play you a little bit of what he said so you understand where he's coming from. So, the bulk of his speech was a series of 9 life lessons that he has learned throughout his career, beginning from his time on MTV's Real World and Road Rules, because he doesn't have any qualifications for the job he's in. But the final rule I want you to be on the lookout for, he basically said, he said you should believe in God, or I'll play the clip. You could see what he said.
There are 2 kinds of people: those who believe in God and those who think they're God. There's something beautiful, humbling, and properly ordered about a man and woman who understand that there is power greater than themselves, that everything is not in their control, and that they are the beloved child of a merciful God who hears their prayers. Before there was GPS technology, sailors solely relied on key stars to keep them, to help them navigate where they were going. Sailors rely on the North Star to lead them, because the North Star remains fixed in the same location throughout the night. In the Middle Ages, men of the sea prayed to the Virgin Mary, who they called Stella Maris, because she was their North Star that pointed them toward God the Father, their protector and spiritual destination. No one knows the unpredictability and storms of nature and life like a sailor. A good sailor knows that in the end, only God can calm the seas and bring them to safety. So stay faithful and never underestimate the power of prayer.
Okay, so that is beyond offensive. It reeks of that old adage, there are no atheists in foxholes, suggesting that when they're under attack, every soldier becomes a believer if they weren't one already. Like, it's a lie. No, there are atheists in foxholes, and not every sailor believes in God, and it's not because they are so arrogant that they believe they are God. So that was absolutely offensive. And not just that, if you look at the statistics put up by the Department of Defense from the most recent one I could find is from 2019, only 70% of active duty personnel were Christian, 2% were atheist or agnostic, and a quarter of them were other or unknown. So there are absolutely people in the military who reject belief in God, and quite possibly a whole bunch of them. But to denigrate their sacrifice by pretending that those non-theists must think they are God, that they're selfish and arrogant and unwilling to put their country and other people before themselves, that is deeply offensive coming from someone representing the administration. Like, if officers are religious, so be it, but the U.S. military is and should always remain secular. Plus, if you're in the middle of a battle and you're relying on prayer to get you out of it, good luck. You're going to need it. So there was one other thing he said in the speech that was really weird. He was, as everyone in the Trump administration does, he was trying to figure out a way to blame Biden for everything. So Duffy blamed the Biden administration for the state of the Merchant Marine Academy building. And even then, he tossed religion into it. So this is another clip from his same speech.
There's a lot of lessons you all have learned over the last 4 years. One of them, probably the most important, is perseverance. You're the class of COVID shutdowns of sea year. You're the class of no hot water for months. You're the class of not enough food. You're the class of paper plates and plastic forks. You're the class of dorms with mold and a dilapidated, falling apart library. Congratulations, you have perseverance. Now, several months ago, I was able to see for myself old tar dripping from the ceilings. I saw dorms rotting with mold. I saw rusty showers with no hot water. And worst of all, I saw Jesus stuffed in the basement.
That last line is a very interesting one. I want to talk about that last line, but also it strikes me as like this guy is blaming everyone else for all these problems. He's blaming the Biden administration for everything. He didn't say once, here's what our administration is doing to fix any of this, because they're not interested in that. They gotta save the money for Jeff Bezos, right? Let's screw over the people serving our military. They're not ICE. We don't care about them. So anyway, that's part of it. What is this Jesus in the basement thing all about? Because that took me down a really dumb rabbit hole, and so now I have to share it with all of you. But let's talk about what this thing actually means. He didn't elaborate on the Jesus bit, but he was implying that the previous administration, which is to blame for everything, is also responsible for putting a painting of Jesus in the basement of the building. They didn't actually stuff Jesus in the basement. That would be big news if that happened. But what is he talking about? Let me share with you what he's talking about. So there is this painting that exists. It's in the Merchant Marine Academy building. It's called Christ on the Water. It was drawn in 1944. And basically a Marine artist painted this. And it shows an abnormally large Jesus helping merchant seamen adrift in a lifeboat, presumably after being torpedoed. These are all the merchant marines who are like, oh no, we just died. Jesus, where were you 10 seconds ago? And Jesus is like, I was busy. And then there's one dude on the left there who's clinging for dear life. And Jesus is like, good luck with that. I'm over on the other side. I'm not going to help you with that either. So this painting, it sat in the Merchant Marine building. Specifically, it is a giant, like, what is it, 10 feet by 19 feet painting. It was installed in the Academy's Interfaith Chapel. And in 1961, that chapel became a giant conference room in this building. So it went from being an exclusively religious space to becoming a secular space that everyone kind of uses in that building. So according to their website, that conference room is used by administrators, faculty, staff, and midshipmen for meetings and events, and as a venue for proceedings held to determine whether a midshipman had violated the Academy's honor code. So they have some very serious meetings in there and just general meetings altogether. So in 2023, a group called the Military Religious Freedom Foundation, they said, we're acting on behalf of 17 alumni, staff, faculty, and midshipmen, and we want this painting removed. And they said, just go put it in the chapel. They still had a chapel. It's just not the conference room. They said, we object to this painting. We're not religious. We don't want it to be. And some of them were religious, but we don't want it to be there. So initially, the painting was covered up with a curtain. Look at this. This is before and after. Before Military Religious Freedom Foundation stepped in on the left, you could see the conference room and the painting there. And then afterwards, you could see they covered it up with a curtain. It's not exactly subtle, but basically the Merchant Marine Academy said, okay, we hear your complaint. We'll cover it up while we try to figure out what to do next. Okay, but covering it up with that curtain led to even more problems. Because why did they cover it up with a curtain? Because it's a big ass painting. They need to figure out where it should go, where to store it so it doesn't get ruined, all that. You can't do that overnight. But they also said at the time, we're also not going to use this conference room for anything important until we figure this stuff out, which is fine. Go figure it out. And this was apparently the biggest issue facing the Merchant Marine Academy. Not the mold, not the food, it was the painting. So the Academy did its best to honor church-state separation without upsetting the religious zealots. So by September of 2023, they announced that, hey, everyone, the painting has been taken down. And this is what they wrote on their website. Here we go. Update on the painting entitled Christ on the Water. In late August, the painting was returned to the Academy after several months of conservation and restoration. They basically sent this painting to a conservation firm And they said it took 4 distinct separate cleanings to remove nicotine, dirt, and varnish from the water, boat, and Christ with aura. So they basically cleaned up the painting and returned it to the Marine Academy, like good as new. So you guys don't be mad at us. We just took it to get restored. And so after that, they moved it down to the chapel. Well, when the Trump administration came to power again in 2025, Duffy was like, no, we got to move that painting back to the conference room because his only goal is to shove Jesus in everybody's faces. And in April, he delivered a ship at that same building saying, you guys, can we bring Jesus up from the basement now? This is part of that speech.
You can be part of DOT. And so I want you to know that I understand the conditions here, and I am going to fight my ass off to make sure you all get the respect and the money that this academy deserves. And so again, not only smart, not only strong, but you are a great looking bunch of young people. Handsome too. And so with that, as you all go into your careers, God bless you. May God keep you safe. But can I ask, could we bring Jesus up from the basement? Let's not put Jesus in the basement. Let him out. Bring him up. I know you hear about that. You want Jesus up from the basement, right? Great. That was the loudest applause we got. We are going to work on that together and funding for the Academy. May God bless you all. Stay safe.
I know it happens all the time now, but it should be disturbing to everybody that this guy is giving a sermon to a bunch of military personnel and they are cheering like they were hand selected for a Trump rally. It is disturbing. But also, like, why are they cheering for the painting more than fix the mold? Which, by the way, he hasn't done yet. He doesn't care about them. So anyway, within a month or two, he basically said, you guys, it worked. We fixed all the problems. Forget the mold. You can deal with the mold. We're bringing Jesus back upstairs. He made that announcement. And so he they managed to bring it back upstairs. So that's what he was talking about when he was giving this commencement address. And he actually said to the Christian Post at the time, check this out. A spokesperson for Duffy's office could not provide the Christian Post on Monday with a timetable for when the Jesus painting will be brought up from the basement, but said the process has begun and we hope to know more soon. And also, I don't know if this matters or not, but after he gave that awful commencement address, this was a headline that the Vice Admiral and the Rear Admiral, two of the people who run the Merchant Marine Academy, they both suddenly announced their retirements. Maybe because I don't know if the fact that they were trying to deal with church-state separation and they weren't just like, oh yeah, let's bring the painting back up and hang it. They were actually trying to do the respectful thing. I don't know if that had anything to do with why they left. But this is what Shawn Duffy and the Trump administration care about. Meanwhile, those people are at this shitty building that is like, they don't have money for the Marines. They have mold everywhere. What the hell? They're not taking care of that stuff. But they got Jesus back up from the basement because that's what matters to these people. It's just embarrassing at this point what these people are doing.